check out our streaming schedule for this week. We've got tons of content in terms of the NFL and college football, as we're going live just about every single day this week. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single moment where we go live. And now, on with our feature presentation.
The fair catch kick is one of the rarest plays in football. For those who don't know what the fair catch kick is, which I'm presuming is most of you, prior to what transpired on Thursday night if you're watching as of this video, after a punt, if a receiver calls for a fair catch and makes the play, or gets interfered with, the team with the ball has a chance to kick the ball through the uprights with a holder, with the kicker able to get a running start like a kickoff, and with the defense being unable to get a running start like a regular field goal. You almost never see this play because it requires the perfect set of circumstances. It requires no time left in the first half, or just about no time left to the point where you even attempt such a thing. It requires a punt resulting in a fair catch with just about no time left, and requires you to be deep enough down the field to try this and have a realistic shot of having it go in, seeing as the other team can return the kick. And most of the time, as you can tell, when it fails, it fails badly. It's not often that this play is attempted. Prior to Thursday, since 1985, LeBron James had made it to 10 NBA Finals, which is double the number of fair catch kick attempts in that stretch at 5. With the thousands upon thousands of games in NFL history in that stretch, that is an insane stat. I did a video about one such attempt, or should I say, failed attempt, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. But when it works, oh man, it's a magical thing and an interesting quirk in the rulebook. And we saw that on Thursday night with this play right here, when at the end of the first half of what would eventually turn out to be a win for the Los Angeles Chargers, kicker Cameron Dicker against the Denver Broncos hit not just the longest fair catch kick in NFL history at 57 yards, but hit the first successful fair catch kick since 1976, when Ray Wersching did it for the San Diego Chargers in a win against the Buffalo Bills, to which there is no surviving footage of the play. For some perspective on how long ago that was, the last time a fair catch kick succeeded, the first episode of Star Wars had not yet been released. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers had won 0 NFL games. The NBA had just merged with the ABA, and ESPN was still a few years away from existing. It was eons ago is what I'm getting at. What Dicker did on Thursday night, simply put, was historic. There are only 6 known instances, including Dicker's kick, of a fair catch kick being converted. And we're going to talk about one of them today. We're going to talk about this game right here, a 1968 game between the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. Because in light of the fair catch kick succeeding and helping the Chargers win the game, it raises the question, is this rule stupid? Should the fair catch kick exist? Is this bizarre little wrinkle in the rulebook a valid football play? And should this be allowed? You be the judge of that. But I know this much. One person didn't seem to think so. Because after this 1968 game between the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers, let's just say that one person decided to air out his grievances on what he felt was a complete BS play. Because this is the story behind, I guess if you want to call it, the most controversial fair catch kick in NFL history, and the player who wanted to rewrite the rulebook. Before I talk about the actual incident in question, we need some context to talk about the game itself, as well as how the game was going, because this was a big one with a ton riding on it. It's November 3rd, 1968. It's week 8 of the NFL season, and we've got a critical Central Division battle on our hands between 2 bitter rivals in the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. Back in 1968, you had to win your division in order to make the playoffs. There were no wild cards, so it was first or nothing. And midway through the 1968 season, the Central was as tight as it could possibly be, as the Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions, and Chicago Bears each had 3 wins under their belt. Can't get much closer than all 4 teams tied on wins at the halfway point. So to say that this game was massive would be putting it lightly. Win this game and potentially get into first place in the division, and you've got the upper hand going into the second half of the season. Lose this one, and you've got some work to do with your playoff hopes hanging on by a thread. Oddly enough, I did a video about the other meeting between the Packers and the Bears that season, so if you want to learn more about that crazy game, you can do so by clicking the card in the upper right corner. But so far in this one, as in the first meeting between these two teams, much like the actual division itself, this game was super tight, with the score tied at 10 apiece in the fourth quarter. Even though Chicago took an early 10-0 lead in the second half, thanks to a field goal and a 2-yard touchdown run by Virgil Carter, the Packers answered right back and scored 10 points of their own, thanks to a field goal and a 50-yard pass from future Hall of Fame quarterback Bart Starr to Carroll Dale. The Bears had their opportunities, running for 291 yards, but they also fumbled the ball 5 times. Conversely, the Packers had their opportunities, holding the Bears to just 37 net passing yards on 16 dropbacks, but being completely unable to stop Yale Sayers, who had over 200 yards rushing. And with the score tied at 10 apiece and being deadlocked, as you can tell by these highlights of both teams, it looked like this game was going to end in a stalemate and be a draw. Remember that back in 1968, unless it was the postseason, there was no such thing as overtime. Once the clock hit triple zeros and the final gun went off, that was it on this cold, chilly November day at Lambeau Field. And then came the moment of truth. Because with 30 seconds left in the contest, after the Bears got a stop at the 5-yard line and forced Donnie Anderson to punt the ball away, as you can tell, Anderson was unable to get a good punt off. The punt was fair caught successfully right around the 44-yard line. Anderson was a solid punter at times. At that point in 1968, he was averaging 42.7 yards per punt. Keep in mind that the league-wide average was somewhere around that 40-yard mark. A punt of 42.7 yards, or anything close to that, would probably be enough to avoid the doomsday scenario, especially seeing as Chicago kicker Mac Percival had never made a field goal longer than 50 yards in his NFL career, and would never go on to make a kick that long in his career. But this was a short punt, and the fair catch set up the fair catch kick. The Packers successfully pulled off this play 4 years ago with Paul Hornung in 1964, oddly enough, against the Chicago Bears. And head coach Phil Bankston, who you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, was the defensive coordinator of the Packers back then, so he knew what was coming. George Halas, the head coach of the Bears, knew the rule, seeing as he was also coaching the Bears back then, and had coached just about every football game known to man. In other words, we knew what was about to transpire. We were going to get a fair catch kick. And sure enough, Percival drilled it. With about 20 seconds to go, the Bears decided not to call any plays from scrimmage, and instead just went with the fair catch kick right then and there. Of course, it was successful, and the Bears won the game by a final score of 13-10. Without a doubt, it was one of the craziest and the wildest moments in the history of the storied Packers-Bears rivalry, and it put a dent in the playoff hopes of the 3-time reigning NFL champion, dropping them to below 500. And after the game, when it came to this play right here, and apologies that I have to keep showing this play over and over again, but it's the only angle that exists of said play, and it wouldn't make any sense to share something else, one Packer was understandably furious about how this one came to an end. Because in his eyes, the fair catch kick was such a stupid way and was a dumb way to decide a game. After all that, after all the hard work on the field, is going to come down to this and a play where you can't even do anything? Because linebacker Jim Flanigan, the team's second-round pick of the 1967 NFL Draft 1 year prior, was livid about this play. Flanigan wound up having a 5-year career in the NFL, never really doing a whole lot of anything outside of special teams duty, although he did start quite a few games as a member of the New Orleans Saints in 1971. But he was on the field for this play, and man, he couldn't take the fact that his team just lost like that. Because as Flanigan said after the game on the fair catch kick, you can't do anything. You just stand there and hope the guy doesn't make it. You might as well be in the stands. You can't run it back. It's terrible. And while he didn't blame the loss on the fair catch kick, seeing as he did say that the Packers didn't do enough to win the game and they blew some chances, in no uncertain terms, he was calling this rule really freaking stupid. You're telling me that there's a play in this sport and there's a situation where the defense just stands around and can't do anything? there is a play where the other team can score, and the other team doesn't even have a chance to stop it. And it's interesting when you look at it like that, because there aren't too many other sports like that where the opposition can score and you can't do a darn thing about it. You do have basketball on the free throw, where obviously the defense can't block the shot or contest it. But that was caused by a foul committed by the other team as they were trying to score. You do have rugby offload conversion on a try, which is like an extra point in football, but minus the part where the defense can do anything to block it or rush the kicker. However, that comes after a score. So it came on a play where the other team was trying to score. In rugby, you also have free kicks, where you can kick it, usually from 22 meters out, and try and score that way without the defense blocking it. However, that comes after an infraction committed by the opposition. Any sport that has a rule like this, it's either off of an infraction or it's an attempt to score. A punt that results in a fair catch is not an attempt by the opposition to score, nor is it an infraction by itself. So on that hand, I understand where Flanigan is coming from. I get his frustration that there is a play where the other team cannot even do anything about it and just has to helplessly watch the ball go through the uprights or not. It's why many people are adamant about there not being a rule saying that you can score on a kickoff, because the defense can't do anything about it. A rule where you kick the ball through the uprights and it counts as a point off the kickoff? Yeah, you can't defend that. And it is true about being in the stands. I, watching from my living room couch, could do as much to stop the fair catch kick as any defender, since it's an unopposed run-up and play to hit the ball. On the other hand, though, this absolutely seems like sour grapes. This is 100% sour grapes, and the rule is fine the way it is. First off, there is a way to stop the fair catch kick from happening, and that is to not have a punt so poor that the other team can fair catch it in plus territory with a chance to score and take advantage of this rule. And it's not like this was the first time this rule happened since he was in the NFL, seeing as it happened 1 year prior in 1967 in a game between the Los Angeles Rams and the Detroit Lions. He was on special teams, so he knew the rule, and he had at the very least known about such a thing happening in the NFL before, especially seeing as even if we don't count that Rams-Lions game, he had guys on the team who were with the Packers in 1964 when the play happened. In other words, he had ample chances to comment on it beforehand. And the fact that he commented on it there in that situation, and the first time he brings it up is when it negatively impacts him and his team, yeah, that seems like a sore loser to some extent. You know those people that have no opinion on anything and are indifferent about things, and the moment it negatively impacts them, they want to abolish said thing, even though they had knowledge of that thing before it negatively impacted them and didn't say a word or care about it whatsoever? That was Jim Flanigan during this play right here that you've been watching this whole time. Whether you think this rule is stupid or not is up to you. But for Jim Flanigan to only say that after it negatively impacted him, despite having knowledge of said rule this entire time, seems a bit fishy if you ask me. Especially seeing as the man never made media appearances before that play. Are we going to see this rule change or even abolished in the coming years? Probably not, and I understand why. The fair catch kick, as quirky as it is, whether you like it or not, is here to stay. Personally, I like the fact that it's staying. And while kickers are very happy about the development, obviously, seeing as it's a risk-free chance to get some more points, and while punt returners are very happy about that development, seeing as they don't have to risk taking shots on a play to try and run it back with no time left if they must score before the half, there are some that will be moaned at. You can bet that Jim Flanigan is one of those guys. Because when the next fair catch kick happens, if his 1968 comments on the play were anything to go off of, Jim Flanigan will likely be upset and helplessly watching in the stands, just like he said he might as well have been doing on that November day. Because in his eyes, the fair catch kick is not fair at all.
Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and check out my other channels, JG8 for the history of college football, JG7 for the history of baseball, and JG9 News, where we talk about all things happening in the NFL. Join me every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we'll play live NFL trivia for cash prizes. And make sure to join me live, as we're on stream just about every single day. And thanks to all our Patreon members and our YouTube members for helping out the channel. See how you become a member and show your support financially in the description down below.